Around 2011, I was approached by Bryan Durkin at the CME to think about, coming and running the European operations for the CME, and that seemed like a good moment for me to escape the clutches of the government and RBS. So I made the move to CME in 2011 to run their European platform and build it out. Because at that moment in time, there wasn't a particularly big operation, and also the other thing that happened in the market was post Lehman. All the banks were cutting back on their personnel, and what happened to the futures operations seemed to happen across the board, which they were cutting back people on the broking desk. And if I think back as an FCM, it's quite important for us that the exchanges came to us and then we went to the end client. So it wasn't up until the Lehman's crisis, it wasn't the norm for exchanges to go directly to the client. It was the norm for them to come through the futures brokers, and if they wanted to introduce new products, they would come to us and we'd go and sell it to the client, and we would be the educational process for the exchanges. What happened post Lehman's is that all the desks got cut back. There was a general culling of people within the financial industry, and so when I joined CME, it became quite clear that if you're going to get to the end customer, you had to build up your sales force. You had to do it yourself, and get to the end customer and tell the end customer your story, because there weren't enough people in the futures operations to go and do that for you. And so it was very much linking the exchange to the FCM and being able to sell with the FCM your products. And so that built up over a period of time. And so what we've seen since then is that we've got a pretty substantial sales force at CME helping us to market our products in coordination with the FCM. So it's always in coordination, and I think that's a model now that I think that all exchanges, it's evolved in the last 11 years to be the norm, rather than you can't go anywhere near my customer as an exchange. It was an insurance policy, really, because we weren't sure how cleared swaps was going to operate, whether there were going to be the restrictions between the US and Europe, and were the regulations that were being put into place in the US going to affect how you could attract a business from the European party. So it was a hedge. We gave it a good shot, but ultimately the restrictions that we thought might come in between, and there was a little bit of a fight between the CFTC and the European Commission, but ultimately that kind of sorted itself out, and so there wasn't really a requirement. At CME Europe, we also went and launched a number of futures products, but the fact that it would have taken a long time for those futures products to be linked, to be able to cross margin them against the US clearinghouse, and so ultimately we effectively moved CME Europe back into the US and just got rid of it. We didn't need it, and we were struggling to get the offsets between the two. So it was just but it was a good insurance policy for the exchange to have, just in case something had fallen on the wrong side it wasn't really a battle, but there was a bit of a battle over the OTC clearing side. Between 2011 2016, a big part of building out the European operations for the CME was actually making sure that we could cover our clients in the European time zone. And so a lot of the clearing capability that we developed for CME Europe was used to cover European customers, because I remember the time before I joined CME, and I was a customer of theirs, that one of our biggest frustrations was that we had to wait till 2 o'clock when Chicago came in before we could answer questions, and obviously back when I first started, that wasn't so much an issue. But as the markets developed and people wanted real-time positions, and they wanted to know first thing in the morning London time what their position was, and if there was a problem, you had to deal with it in London time, not wait for 2 o'clock in Chicago. So we mirrored all the operations in Chicago into London. So we built out the London operation so that it covered all the requirements of the customers, and they didn't have to wait till 2 o'clock. So that was a big shift for the CME to move that infrastructure out of the US. And then at the same time, what we were doing was we looked at from an IT perspective, to rather having everything based in the US, we looked to follow the sun. So we opened up an IT center in Belfast initially, and then we opened one in Bangalore, so that we were basically operating 24 hours a day rather than being just operating on US time. And that was also a big shift in terms of our ability to develop the systems, to develop new products, and to speed up our applications, really, and development of applications. So all that happened in that time. So London built up off the back of that. And then in 2016, we created into international. So I started to run international. So we then moved, and London became the center for the international business. So Asia then fell into the London clearing and operations side, and then over a period of time we gradually moved the capability from London into Singapore, so that we had the 3 time zones. So it's all very much about developing that for the exchange, so that we could deal with all the various different time zones. And so so that was interesting, and also one of the things that was always very interesting for me when we looked at the international markets was how Asia developed, and we spent a lot of time looking at developing the Asian market and trying to create liquidity in the Asian time zone. So there was always pretty good liquidity in London, but certainly in the last 6 or 7 years, our main focus has been trying to get that liquidity into the Asian time zone, so people didn't have to wait for London to open to execute their trades, and people in London have to wait to Chicago opened up. And so that's been a big development from the international perspective, which is actually building out that volume and making it sure. And so, funnily enough, our biggest helper was Trump, because he used to tweet in the middle of the night. So everybody sort of now, everybody had to be set up to execute in the Asian time zone. You couldn't wait back. So it was quite interesting how that really helped us to develop that capability. It's building out that volume. So I think when I first came to the CME, so just over 20% of the revenue came from international, and now it's over a third. So that's been the big development, and it's our ability to handle clients outside of the US and meet all their requirements, and also working with other exchanges internationally. So various times we work with B3, we've worked with Bursa Malaysia, JPX, and so it's been very much a case of trying to work with the other exchanges rather than competing against them, and I think that's been a very it's something which I inherited. It's not something I developed, but Gil, Bryan Durkin, Terry, that very much was the way forward, and so one of the areas where we've seen a lot of growth, it has its up and down, is China. So I first got involved with China in 2000 when RBS bought 5% of the Bank of China, and then subsequent to that, when we bought ABN in 2007, a futures operation came with that. So Galaxy Futures was there, and Galaxy Futures at that point was number 136 in China. We put all our infrastructure into Galaxy Futures, and within about 2 or 3 years, it had gone to number 3. So it became a big futures broker, and so that's still going strong. So that got me into China, and then when I took over the international, we continued to push into China. So we CME it's well represented in China now. Looking at executive coaching, I'm starting to work with a group on that. Need to do a bit of training for that, but that's my next phase, is looking at executive coaching.